With the revolution said and done, Opfelden's Congress elected its first president of the new republic. Famed orator who inspired many into action during the revolution, James Grocyn is chosen. He transforms the Congress into the National Assembly and holds an official election. He served for 3 years before stepping down. Thus, the Republic was born. A few years later, in 4864, President Thomas Muller would wage war against the nearby Principality of Badenburg across the Gericke Sea and annexed it during the fierce Battle of Helfenstrasse. This former principality became the Opfelder state of Kriegsland, which allowed for an even greater influx of slave trade into Opfelden. In 4868, progressive President James Hagan is elected. Hagan is an ardent believer in abolition for Opfelden. Many Opfelder slavers ran raids into neighboring Nebuchadnezzar through Kriegsland and stole poor citizens in the thousands and promised for work in Opfelden, shipping them across the Gericke Sea into the state of Brittany, where they were sold and bartered for across the south and into servitude. They were officially slaves, and Hagan wanted to end it. Of course, the South prospered economically from this trade and the free work they were receiving on their plantations and farms, and were widely opposed to abolition. This led to the creation of the Secessionist Party when progressive President James Hagan was elected. Members of the Secessionist Party were commonly known as Secessions, and in the years leading up to 4870, Secessions gained major political traction across the South and were elected to places like governorship positions, and one was even made Secretary of Agriculture for Thomas Muller. Hagan, of course, made it known since the beginning of his presidency that it was his ultimate goal to liberate the slaves and, quote, free the nation from its own moral chains. This was met with violent opposition across the South. A group of representatives of the National Assembly, called the Purists, clamored together 20 delegates, 2 of which were from the North, to bring an effigy of Hagan under the floor of the Assembly, hang it from the viewing balcony, and cause massive outrage on the floor on June 2nd of that year. Norton Gremitz of Bratvia led these dissidents into the fray. Storming the floor, these men screamed and shouted a popular cry, being, "Hagan does evil work, and hanging is our only option," at which point the effigy was thrown off the balcony, quote, snapping with such vigor that many thought it was a real man they had hung, wrote Delegate Hans Becker. There came then the voice of Representative Holland Meikenzer, who stood and yelled, quote, an obscenity at Gremitz for disturbing the proceedings of the Assembly in such a vile protest, remembered another representative, Daniel Fragan, who himself was a Southern abolitionist. Fragan continued, Meikenzer removed himself from his seat, walking bravely out towards Gremitz, saying to him, "No man would ever disturb this honorable assembly the way you have, and no man would ever threaten the president's life based on a petty want to perpetuate the suffering of the slaves." This led Gremitz to strike Meikenzer in the jaw, knocking him on the floor. A delegation correspondent to the Weissenberg Weekly wrote, quote, Gremitz yelled out to the crowd, "Let me spill the first drop in a sea of blood that will soon engulf this nation." He removed a blade from his pocket before a massive scrap broke out upon the assembly floor, beginning with some delegates tackling Gremitz to stop the attempted murder of Meikenzer. It seemed that nearly every representative involved themselves in this battle in varying forms. Some older gentlemen cared for the wounded in the back and the sides of the room. The younger men organized assaults across the aisles. Stronger fellows beat others to a pulp, throwing men over chairs, all the while the Assembly Speaker Vaders was hammering away his gavel, attempting to calm the crowd. Eventually, Capitol Guards were called in and evacuated the Assembly by point of bayonet. With the Assembly mostly battered and taken out onto the lawn of the Capitol building, they left one man behind. A young representative from Deno, Nathaniel Beisecker, who had been beaten with a cane so severely he bled to death in the final aisle of the Assembly Hall. National outrage was sparked in the North as many called for the execution of some Southern delegates. Gremitz was arrested for assault along with John Heinbaum, who confessed that he had beaten Beisecker with his cane, quote, with the intention of only wounding and not killing. Unfortunately, this had not been the first time violence had erupted on the National Assembly floor, but it was the worst and the first true battle of the Civil War. After Hagan's first term, he successfully abolished slavery in the North, where it was of little to no use and very unpopular. He decided, of course, to run again. Following a debate in the state of Brittany with Secessionist Charles Balmer, Hagan was giving a speech when he was shot by John Trumbull in Hamburg. His vice president, James Maelstrom, became the acting president. Maelstrom signed an executive order to outlaw slavery in the entire nation, which led to the secession of Brittany, followed by Ebenen, Bratvia, and the rest of the southern states. the war was on. Shortly following secession, Maelstrom gave a speech saying, quote, "We will not let this union fail. Either by diplomacy or war, we set this confederacy, this commonwealth, right. Soon the bloody sun rises, and soon the war will be done." Unfortunately, Maelstrom was unaware of the war he was getting himself involved in. The first major battle took place in North Opfelden at Jarr's Point, where a railroad junction led towards the newly formed Commonwealth of Brittany's capital in Tollsbrook. The Northern Army, otherwise known as the Republican Army, was over 15,000 strong and under the command of the North's best general, Rand Ochman, who led troops during the Tammany War of 4850. Ochman was 78 years old, leading his men against the far younger Sheridan Molloy of Brownstadt. The Army of the Commonwealth was roughly 8,000 strong, but claimed good defensive ground along a series of ridges above the railroad. Ochman sent 3 waves of attacks at Sheridan, but they could not break the line, resulting in a Southern victory. The Battle of Jarr's Point left 629 men dead, 400 of which were Northerners. The Southerners soon struck north and pushed the Opfelders out of Opfelden and made a march on Weissenberg, being stopped short in the state of Opfen, where the two armies engaged at the Battle of Obert Plain. Sheridan realized that his army was incredibly outnumbered on his campaign and completely cut off from the south. Following a terrible defeat, he broke the army into 4 pieces and then traveled east into Burgenland, where they slipped through the mountains. One detachment was captured at the Battle of Katterberg, leading to 200 of them being massacred. The rebels fought defensively for the next 2 years until the army grew to match the size of the Army of the Republic. 70,000 volunteers tagged on to one army alone under Sheridan. The entire Southern force amounted to 200,000 men, and at 4874, 100,000 of them marched north and won 3 battles on the campaign. "10,000 soldiers even made it into Nordens and captured the capital city of Nolligstedt. Sheridan finally pushed on Weissenberg and laid siege to the city in April of that year, until Junus, when he was forced to retreat as a detachment of the Northerners approached his rear. Sheridan broke the siege and attacked the enemy at the Battle of Haps Ferry, where he was thrown back, losing 2,000 men killed in a single day. Sheridan marched south and was later defeated in Janus of 4875 at the 4th Battle of Tollsbrook. The war had raged for nearly 5 years and claimed over 700,000 casualties. With the Commonwealth surrendered, the war was finally said and done.